Hi, it's Ryan for another video on Kosmoflot, and this week it's a buying guide for the faction. Much like Military Orders video, this video is designed for newer players or those wishing to get into the army from scratch. So, why am I doing this? Well, like Military Orders, many people are getting into Kosmoflot for good reasons. They're a strong and fun faction to play with lots of neat models from across Ariadna, but their models are kind of spread out and around at the moment between Code 1 boxes, Fireteam packs, and as of writing, the not yet released Code 1 Ariadna Action Pack. As always with videos like this is only advice that you can ignore and grab whatever you want to build a few lists from there. Don't make your hobby a chore, so grab and paint what you like, but here are some general pointers. Okay, so a couple of assumptions. Same as Military Orders in the Caledonia video, see the cards for those two bad boys. First of all, Infinity loves to proxy. It's rule 1 in the official ITS rules, so I'm assuming you're okay with proxying as per those rules. So it's within silhouette value and largely sticking with light infantry for light infantry, medium infantry for medium infantry, and heavy infantry for heavy infantry. There may be a few exceptions based on design of a model, but everything should be within its classification. Also, I'll assume that you will be okay with proxying loadouts. WYSIWYG is a very hard thing for Infinity, and I seriously don't recommend trying it. Not every unit will get every loadout, and that's okay. It gives us some flexibility here. Next, the goal of this video is to get to a fairly playable 300 point 10 to 15 order list. I'm also writing this with the assumption that you understood most, if not all, of the basic rules, and you're looking to get into your first or second army. Purchases don't need to be done all at once, do it at your own rate, but thanks to the action pack, you can do a lot of smaller games with a fairly big starting purchase. The priority of this will be on fun and utility. I'll recommend some boring stuff, but honestly I don't think there really is boring stuff in Kosmoflot, besides maybe the War Core and Rockots, who even then can do some pretty wild stuff. Couple things to rattle through and reiterate before we begin. If you like a model, I'm really excited to paint it and own it, get it. I personally sought out the Defiance Cadian, even if he's a little overshone in this sectorial. It will be able to fit into a Kosmoflot list with very little finagling, which is fantastic. This is not the be-all end-all guide, but a good advice. And finally, a typical Kosmoflot list will consist of one Fireteam core, one Harris, some solo pieces, and maybe some Order monkeys to power up the big guys. So what do we need? Well, you can watch the Kosmoflot video on what units are good, and well, to be frank, a lot of units are good. But it's specifically the Rockots, Vokalat Shock Troops, the Unknown Ranger, Varangian Guard, Bears of both types, SAS, Catarans, Ermendinos, Patchers, and Uxia McNeil. Unlike Military Orders, order generation is not really an issue in Kosmoflot, and unlike Caledonia, we rarely want for slots, and will often need to squeak in that last order, which is fortunately fairly easy. Unlike Military Orders, which is so well supported with 2 boxes, Kosmoflot only really has one way to get into it. The Crimson Stone / Beyond Crimson Stone combination, but if you're watching in the future, this will be combined into the Code 1 Ariadna Action Pack, if this follows the precedence of all the other Code 1 boxes. It should contain all of Crimson Stone and Beyond Operation Crimson Stone, which will give you around 260 points in N4 with exact profiles, but that can go a little up and down if you're willing to proxy loadouts. This is essentially a list. Even just Crimson Stone gives us 3 Rockots, a Vokalat, a Zenit, SAS, and a Paracommando. That gives you most of our best core, one of our 2 or 3 needed midfielders, a side attack base, and a camo sniper or a chain of command model. Beyond Crimson Stone gives you an alternative shooter in the Cosmosoldat, a good defensive or NCO piece in the Scots Guard, which can load out proxy, and Wallace, which is one of our best lieutenants, but not an absolute requirement like he is in Caledonia Highlander Army. So you've got the basics. What next? Well, good news is that, as I've said, a lot of good options in Kosmoflot, and this section of required models are like the cream of the crop. So in no particular order, I recommend picking up the following. More SAS. You get 1 in Crimson Stone, but I always suggest the minimum of 2 or 1 with Uxia. Get to her in a second. They're fantastic midfield controllers who can murder tags and CC, whip 13 specialists, and guess what? It's 21 points on the only profile you will ever take. The SAS are fantastic models, however getting hold of them is kinda tricky. So before there was a duo of 2 older SAS models, and those are not for sale anymore. So the only available SAS is the one in the Crimson Stone kit. If you grab this blister, that would be great, or you can wait until Corvus Belli gives us a new sculpt for these guys and gals. 2 alternatives is to get a hold of the new Uxia sculpt with the machete to proxy as an SAS, or any one of the other Uxia sculpts that exist. The alternating is proxying, which leads me nicely on to the next one. So the Unknown Ranger is almost worth buying a random Code 1 pack for. I'm also cheap, but for some this is perfect and they'll just resell or proxy to skirmishers as SAS. 3 total SAS sculpts honestly is not a bad shout when combined with Crimson Stone. There's nice variety too, but I'm getting away from the real star of the show, the Unknown Ranger. The Unknown Ranger is one of the most refined units in the army. In order to play his home sectorial, USAR players need a plan B for when he goes down. He's got a massive target on his back, and fortunately, a massive shield as well. In Kosmoflot, we probably have at least another thing or two that will take precedence in the "oh god, this needs to die." Meanwhile, the Unknown Ranger can rock up and burst things down as required, while a bear acts as a distraction. He can also CC warbands and tags in anything within 8 inches, and finally he can push a button. And he'll drag 2 fun friends who will also give your opponent a hard time, and you decide what that will be because he's a wild card. So not only does he do everything well, he can take a couple of cool models to where they need to be and let them do what they need to be. Although, to be fair and realistic, he's probably doing it for them, and they are just there to buff him. He features in the meta Kosmoflot list for a reason. The Unknown Ranger's friend and a great disposable piece is the Varangian Guard. There are 2 models of this unit and Kosmoflot has availability for, so you can get the duplicates or just grab 1 of each, and honestly you'll be set. 2 is pretty common in Kosmoflot lists, either as 1 is the base for the Unknown Ranger's Harris, and 1 solo to do the Galwegian thing and charge into things, or 2 solo and to charge into things. I don't know what to say here other than they're cheap. Regular orders, so either just let them generate orders and then kill stuff, or just kill stuff from turn 1, or just superpower Harrises. For what it's worth, my favourite is the Axe Dude, so grab him, and if you're mad and want to grab all 4 availability, I maybe recommend the Galwegians. Varangians are just Galwegians in space, and their profiles are largely identical. Right, so why should we get bears for army? Well, the more apt question is why not 2? Both bears are absolute stunners. See my unit guide for why, but the long and short of it is 3 wound spates, which is 2 plus targets, total immunity, damage 14 to 16 templates or damage 18 CC, you smoke on 19s. It's an absolute menace and is found in the majority, if not all, Kosmoflot lists. It can and will kill things you set it towards and takes a disproportionate amount of time to put down. It really is a solid unit, and it comes with a handler for its regular form or a really nice SAS War Driver or 4th Rockhawk we need in its regular form. So kinda like the Teutonic Knights in Military Order, the extra model that might see play is worth for a number of proxies. So get the bear and either run it solo and use the handler as anything, or run the regular bear and use the handler. Either way, it's a worthwhile buy and it's a seriously fun hobby project. Uxia McNeil is the ginger terrier of Ariadna and really recommended. She's often not in my list out of personal preference, but she's an absolute requirement for Kosmoflot, and she's a really strong piece that just seeks out and destroys what she needs to, be it with the shotgun, burst 5 assault pistols, or decharges. She starts in camouflage, as far up as her infiltration +6 will take her. She does have a couple of models, so pick the one you like the most and use that. The loadouts are identical and you're always taking the spec up one, so it's just personal preference. She can be proxied as an SAS since she's literally just a named SAS, or you can use her as is, as it's a great piece to use and cause havoc so that a bear or an Unknown Ranger can follow up. I always recommend Warp Cores, and they only don't show up when I found a much better use for the slot in my list, and that's rare and mostly when I'm running more expensive models. Why this humble 3-point model? Well, with Wallace it's regular, and that's good, but with 360-degree visor, only take that one, and a flash pulse, which is often enough to slow down attack for an order, which doesn't seem like much, but when it risks killing an attack run dead thanks to stun, that becomes a little more frightening. Sure, it can be easily handled, but it's costing your opponent an order that could be pushing towards something more important. I really love sandpack pieces since they can do a lot with so little. They're willing to die, and probably will, but it's also worth it, even if they win a single face-to-face roll, regardless of the actual success on the save. Also, it can be used in any armor, so grab one or use it as a HVT. I love the profile and I love the little model with the aero cam. Now for the recommended models. You can build a list without these obviously, but like having these just makes everything a little bit easier, a little bit nicer, and a little bit stronger. Largely, they're out of the required slot since they're not utterly vital to Kosmoflot, but even then, the required aren't super required with Patchers. Finally, I think it's no secret this video has been delayed because we've had no word on when we were getting things, but it took until Adepticon to finally see them, and damn, these models look really good. So yeah, they're recommended. They are some of our best close quarter troops outside the Unknown Ranger, Uxia and the SAS, all without using melee. It looks like there will be 2 in a pack. Both the heavy flamethrower and Vulcan shotgun are present, which is really nice. So if you want either profile, it's there. Honestly, these sculpts look like they should be Silhouette 5, but the models aside, Patchers are a fantastic unit with specialists that are Whip 13. 2 true wounds, but degrading, that's fine, it's the quantity that counts here. They do have some solid template weapons, so going into objectives they can really push off other pieces quite easily that no one wants to deal with 2 large templates, 3 Vulcan shots, grenades or heavy pistols. They're terrors within 16 inches and with immunity continuous damage. You can't just get lucky and flamethrower them dead. I don't think you need 2, but I think it might be worth taking 2 every now and then if you need a second one in a core for an anti-alpha strike, or one with the Unknown Ranger, or one with the Unknown Ranger, Harris, and one with a duo. I do recommend this even if you're only going to use one, and you could maybe use the other as something else with some kit bashing. Irmandinos are really useful pieces in Kosmoflot in that they are warbands, which are forever useful, smoke throwers and Whip 13 specialists. They can impetuous up the board, take an objective, and then suicide into something as required. As such, I'm going to recommend grabbing them. They come in packs of 2, which is probably more than enough even if they are availability 4 in Kosmoflot. As such, you can grab them at a good price. If you haven't grabbed the Varangian Guard, then these are good proxies for their profiles and roles, since they are similar. Obviously don't use one as a Varangian Guard and one as an Irmandino unless you do some heavy conversions. That could cause some confusion. If you instead grab Galwegians for your Varangian Guard and don't use all 4 as Varangian Guard, I may recommend converting their kilts into wetsuits or webbing to work as Irmandinos. I think it could work and you could squish 3 purchases into 1 if you don't mind hobbying Scots into smugglers. The Fire Team Pack Alpha is recommended, but with a few caveats. If you just grabbed Crimson Stone and not beyond Crimson Stone, then this is a good grab as it gives you the Cosmosoldat, who is a fun piece, Evoke Missile Launcher, a terrifying and very well used ARO piece, and an AP Spitfire Paracommando. The Volk is really carrying the box here as it's the really useful AR piece which is taken in nearly all of the lists, which is why I'm recommending and not requiring the bot, since you can proxy the loadout of the Crimson Stone Volk as a missile launcher if you need to. However, the community loves the idea of the Pack Soldat and the AP Spitfire Paracommando, which I'm going to try and proxy as an Unknown Raider, so I recommend the box for the missile launcher Volk, so you don't need to proxy that loadout, which is nice but not required, the fun Pack Soldat, and the interesting piece that is the AP Spitfire Paracommando. Additionally, this box allows for a more aggressive core in a dual Volk Rocket core, 1 HMG and 1 missile launcher and 3 rockets, which hey, this box completes your 4-man into a 5-man. Very nice. You can also try duoing the Soldat Harris, which I don't think I recommend the AP HMG and pack at the same time, as they eat into each other quite a lot, so maybe one being a T2 rifle is a good idea. This plus a Stranic or a Frontovlik Paramedic means you get +3 on something up to 32 inches, which is great. I have a list I want to try later that is called Girth in the midfield and is just a Pack Soldat, T2 Rifle Soldat, and I think either a Stranic or Cadian. It's a lot to deal with. I also just mentioned making the Paracommando into the Unknown Ranger or even the Frontovlik AP Spitfire or Scots Guard AP Spitfire. You've got options here. Overall, I recommend the box as an addition to Crimson Stone, but much less so if you already have Beyond Crimson Stone, just because 2 Soldats are a bit much. As of writing, the 2nd of April, they've not yet announced anything regarding the Stranic, Mechanic and Helper bots, so I'm going to make a prediction here that they will release them all as a Kosmoflot support pack. Kinda like how the panel support box for Code 1. If they do, then it's a solid recommendation as the Mechanic is a really useful piece in a rocket core for drop zone defense with Mine Layer and helps clear off some of the statuses off of Volcaland. Stranics are a very useful wildcard doctor that can bring medkits to your Scots Guard or your Varangian fire teams. EM bots really help boost Irmandinos, 112 motorized, dozers and mechanics to really keep the various rems and tags going. If these models don't come in a box, then it gets a little more tricky to recommend, but you're looking to prioritise getting the mechanic for the 5th member of your fire team or the Stranic for your Harris. The bots need another good model in their kit to recommend them. So the nice to have / the rest of the models are the units that aren't game changing, maybe bar 1 or 2, but would really spice up your list and make your collection go far beyond the best picks. All but equipping Mirage 5 are things I recommend as neat and cool things to add to your list, like a tag or a werewolf with amazing CC. Really, this is where you are picking what's coolest the most, and honestly, a much more broad selection than just the recommended stuff. Scots Guard are some really nice looking models, but not necessary for Kosmoflot, or really not necessary beyond Availability 1, which you do have if you get beyond Crimson Stone, who you can proxy as the missile launcher if you need to. I don't usually find myself wanting to take more than one, be it the Camel missile launcher, the NCO in a fire team, or the AP Spitfire. But with the inclusions of Fortovliks in a fire team with them, then I mean it might be worth trying out a Harris or core of them if you want to try something different. They are fantastic models as well, so I mean you could just buy them if you really like them and proxy them as Fortovliks instead if you want. If you plan to play Caledonia with Kosmoflot proxies, then these go up the priority list slightly, but you're not really bringing too many in either armies unless you want to go out your way to run them. In saying that, there are 3 gorgeous models that I want to get and magnetize an Unknown Ranger shield on the AP Spitfire one, and give one of the other 2 maybe a Camel Cloak. You've got interesting possibilities. So overall these are nice to have if you want to run them, but they're not required for Kosmoflot. I think I'm going to pick them up so I can have a Missile Launcher Scot for defense, SMG Scot for some cool midfielder, and an AP Spitfire as my Unknown Ranger, or a cheeky, fun, off-meta Harris. Fortovliks are a little more useful than Scots Guard thanks to their own fire team with them and the Harris with the Soldat. While not in the meta list, I can often see 1 or 2 of them in a list with a big diversity in profiles, which is really useful. With 4 slightly older than Scots Guard models, you do get more bang for your buck. Do you need all 4? Not really, but I think it's a nice thing to have, but not a bad thing. Same as having all the Scots Guard, but I don't think I need the AP Spitfire and the heavy rocket launcher one. But yeah, the T2 rifle and sniper maybe a bit more than the others, because I can sort of see the case for them the most, just maybe not all 4. Although, in saying that, there are good proxies for the Scots Guard, so 2 kits in one if you want to Scotify them. I definitely think their home is with the Soldat, in which you only need 1, or maybe you can take them in a Harris with AP Sniper, Stranic, and another Fortovlik, Wildcard, or Scots Guard. I like them a lot after playing in the Highlander, since it offered a lot more unit profiles at lower point games, and you can squeeze them in 300 point lists. TAC is a different kettle of fish, and if you're planning on playing both, maybe then it would be a good purchase. War Driver is a really nice model and sometimes taken in Kosmoflot, especially now we have a repeater for a season. It's probably nice to have for some missions, but it's not utterly required. To be honest, it's a hacker whose sole job is to hack in Ariadna. It's limited to the Rocket Fire team, which it likes to be pure for the BS reasons. If it were a wildcard, I may recommend them a little more, specifically so it can follow a tag around, which I'll get to in a minute. I feel like there isn't much to say. If it was more like Isabel or Mines and other kit, I think this would be taken more often for Heresies, but right now it's something profile-wise you take for the required missions like Biotech War, Mindwipe, and Highly Classifieds. However, if you play say Nomads, Ikari, or Spyro and need a cool hacker model, pick this up. I don't want to be talking this model down, but I struggle to recommend a War Driver in Ariadna unless you like the model and want it in your lists. It's 100% optional. Right, I promise I won't be negative all the time, because equipping Mirage 5 is a really nice set of models to have in Kosmoflot for 2 reasons. The main reason is that it's the brutal piece that can do a lot of damage and can be the big fin in your list to bludgeon people to death. A lot of people like using them, and for good reason. Equipping Mirage 5 is probably not required or recommended simply because bears do a similar job, but for much less. They are also a rare thing to see in my opinion. While a phenomenal unit, it is really hard to hide them effectively. But if you have any interest in running them or good experience in leveraging airborne deployment, then this shoots right up into recommended or required if you love this model and pairing. Other advantages, like the Bear Pod team, is that you get 2 models and now you've got 2 proxies. Need a second bear? Well, you've got Duroc. Need another heavy infantry, medium infantry? Then you've got Margot to stand in, which is nice. It's worth noting she's not particularly armoured or obviously a heavy infantry, so she may even be your Rock-Up, Volk, or even an Armandino. Anyway, I recommend this unit, but mostly if you're interested in airborne deployment, I want to see what a truly iconic Infinity unit can do. The Chernobog is our tag, and I firmly believe that every player should run a tag list at least at some point and should own a tag, even if it's just to paint, and I have just finished it as of the 20th of March. I know I said the 2nd of April earlier in the video. This recording is a whole thing, but I really like it as a gun piece, as a model, and as a concept. I recommend it because it can shake up your list. You probably only need 1, even if it is availability 2. But you should get one, as it's a big, stompy battle walker. It's a really cool model. You can proxy it for sure, but no other thing in this list is vaguely similar or on the same base. It's also adding some real bulk and firepower to Kosmoflot that can be supported by our warband or regular engineers. It's in the thermoplastic and I have had some issues with it, but honestly it was fixed pretty easy and it was fairly easy to paint. Get it if you want a wonderful tag. Right, so Pavel is a bit of a joke to me, but he's not an awful unit. Just the Bears, Uxia, Unknown Raider, Cadian, Wolf, and even just plain SAS do his job better in my opinion. In TAC I believe he's in a league of his own, but in Kosmoflot I'm not sure. He's not awful, just expensive and probably correctly pointed, which is a shame. If you need a midfielder specialist, he's not bad at his job. Camo, min -3, and a decent gun to leverage surprise attack. Unfortunately, he's no slouch in melee either. He's also 30 points for 1 wound, so he's not really wanting to lose, but fortunately he's one of the best melee guys in Ariadna, so real hard swings and roundabouts here. He's in the nice to have list as he makes a good Cataran proxy as well and could do some serious work if piloted well. But with better options you're picking him because you want to run the profile or paint the model. I have one, I got it with a Caledonia lot. I thought it would be in the TAC half when it was split, but I hadn't accidentally got him. But if I hadn't accidentally got him, I wouldn't have picked him up. He's a solid model and profile just better elsewhere and others do his job better. Wolfgang Wolfie Wolfington is another interesting one in the 30-point melee monster master club that is slightly overshone somehow. The Unknown Ranger makes Wolfgang slightly redundant as he has a better fire team and shooting options, not helped by Wolfgang not being able to join any other fire team except a rocket corps and denying the ability to get purity, which is kinda naff for his low BS and the rest of the low BS in the team. Although I think he's very much usable solo or in a Harris thanks to his dodge +3 and +1 burst multi-rifle. I'm yet to use him, but unlike Pavel, I might actually take him, especially since he's got really good at melee and can shut down a lot of problematic melee users. He berserks on 20, which is fantastic, and slapping back regularly with a 25 and a -9 thanks to his Paris CCW. I like Wolfgang as a piece in Kosmoflot, but he's not a requirement. He's also a good proxy for Cadian. Speaking of Cadian, the third and final member of the 30-point melee master club that is just about cut everywhere in Ariadna, he might be functionally the best melee guy in Ariadna. He's only damage 15, but that's with AP and T2. So if he hits, which he will on 26s or 29 when he's berserking, it is very likely to murder it. He is also 2 wounds like Wolfgang, but gains Natural Born Warrior, so most of the most deadly melee users aren't likely to do much to him. He's great, and his links are better than Wolfie's by being a wildcard, but I do struggle to use him unless I want to bring 2 wounds and don't want the Unknown Ranger. Staldat, Cadian and Stranik is a tough Harris. A Varangian and Cadian is a good duo as well. Lots of options and some patcher overlap, but Cadian may be a little better at bodyguarding than Wolfie. Cadian doesn't come just as Cadian though. He comes via the Dire Foes box, which comes with a HVT, which is nice and required for many missions. So immediately, this is a really nice box to have. Not only that, you get Jazz and Billy, which if you play CGC or Vanilla Nomads, then that's very useful. If you don't, then you can have a great war driver to save yourself that purchase, or a good dozer or mechanic proxy with her jumpsuit that portrays that very well. Billy is an elusive Silhouette 1 model and is probably worth grabbing, so you have an EM helper bot proxy. So yeah, this box isn't bad, especially if you're willing to proxy, as Cadian is pretty good, the HVT is useful, and a pre-made proxy kit to support a tag with an engineer and a helper bot. Make no mistake that the Ariadna support pack is, quote, nice to have, but I don't rate this box much at all. Its standout piece is the 112 for your dismounted 112 motorized, which if you run, I don't know how often that much will come up, but at least it's a cool model, and I painted it, and I dig it. The dozer is nice. I kind of like it now. We have a tag and hackable heavy infantry, but Armandinos do similar jobs. The model isn't as required, but I mean, it's definitely on the positive half of this box. If you want a dozer or Armandino proxy, it looks even better. Right now, my biggest problem is the Kazakh Doctor, which I totally believe is completely useless in Kosmoflot. We have 2 cubed models. She denies purity to the only fire team she can join, and she's only BS 11. Everything you need for her, you can get for a Rock-Up paramedic to do better. Sure, you can have her with a helper bot, but I'd argue the 112 motorized would be better because he's faster. If you're running this box without proxying, then I do not recommend this box. If you do proxy, then it's a little better. The 112 is a mounted, dismounted version. The Kazakh Doctor could be a paramedic, rocket, and a dozer can be himself, or an engineering proxy to help hack heavy infantry in the attack. I may recommend eBay for the bits you like, or a split box service. Tractor mules, I don't know. Well, I sort of do. They're very mixed. Like a 5-point regular order is perfect. Guided bot, oh, it's okay, I guess. TR bot, why? ITS 14 special bot, that's not awful. I love mules in that regard. I gushed about them in my top 5 REM video, see the card. So yeah, I sort of recommend getting them because of order generation can sometimes sneak up on you in Kosmoflot, and maybe you need some help to get to 15. The profiles are good and sometimes useful, but my biggest gripe to this to buy 2 mules, 2 Silhouette 4 bots will cost you around €60 on the Chorus Belly store. 2 mule bots the same size is €36 from the Chorus Belly store. They are big, chunky metal models, and to some they love that, but for me that's a line I don't want to cross, and I'm actually waiting for the resin versions to get them. If not, I'll use my 2 mule bots, which I might also recommend if you're cheap. If you can see them in your list, want to collect all of Kosmoflot's model, try to get them discounted if you can. 112 Motorized I love, and I promise I'll be a little nicer here. It's a very unique and I think useful model to have, as it can be a really nice tertiary objective grabber and an oh shit picker-upper. The model is sweet, as is the concept. Is it needed for a Kosmoflot army? No. It's not 100%. It's a different way to try and play Kosmoflot, so I kind of recommend it as it opens up other ways to play. Catarans are last, but by no means least. I really dig them, but they're not really recommended because the Vault brings a lot of good ranged attacks. I think I could personally move them into the recommended section, but they're not vital to lists like the others. Right now, as of writing, they're out of production, but I assume they're going to get resculpted and a blister of 1 or 2 in a pack. If that's true, then that's going to be pretty good value. I usually only take 1 in my list, but I really love them. If you get 2, you could do 1 as a rock-up proxy, or you take both in your lists. Either way, when it comes out, if you need some more sniper models in Kosmoflot, then I highly recommend the Catarans, unless the sculpt and pricing is bad. So, that was my Kosmoflot purchase guide. I hope you have a better idea of how to get into the faction. Hopefully this didn't feel too meta-oriented. I'll leave you with the advice that, again, it's your hobby, buy and paint what you want, and the lists will come along later.